Tommy Robinson, a citizen journalist who's being relentlessly persecuted by the British government for the crime of reporting on Islamic rape gangs, is asking the United States of America and the Republican Party and President Donald Trump to grant him emergency political asylum.
My name is Tommy Robinson. Today I'm calling on the help of Donald Trump, his administration and the Republican Party to grant me and my family political asylum in the United States of America. I'm an English man, a British citizen who loves my country, and it hurts me to have to say I have no future here. The only future that lies for me is death. Death at the hands of an establishment who will feed me to Islamic gangs of jihadis within the prison system.
Tommy spent months in solitary confinement after live streaming outside Leeds Crown Court during court proceedings for an Islamic rape gang. His conviction underscored the true priorities of the British legal system.
Now, last year, Leeds Crown Court broke every single legal procedure possible. They refused me my own legal representation. They didn't even tell me what I was accused of doing. They didn't ask me to plead guilty or not guilty. They didn't even let me speak. I was sentenced to 13 months in prison in a 10-minute trial, something you'd imagine being held in North Korea. It was rightly thrown out on my appeal after I spent 3 months in solitary confinement. Judge Marston decided that day that I needed to be immediately removed from the streets and sent to prison within minutes. The Muslim child rapist, with 16 witness statements detailing the rape and torture of children, he deemed they were no risk to the British public. He provided them with bail so they could continue to walk the streets alongside our children.
Now, if you've followed Tommy's case as it's been reported in the British media, you've heard that this was an open and shut case of contempt of court. By violating the court's reporting restrictions, Tommy threatened the entire case. This, of course, is total nonsense. Under British law, if there are reporting restrictions, the court has to publicly post those reporting restrictions. The court didn't. Tommy wanted to be on the safe side, however, so he acted as if they had posted reporting restrictions, even though they hadn't, and he was careful not to share any information that wasn't already in the public domain. Under British law, the courts can't restrict sharing information already in the public domain. If you watched the live stream Tommy was arrested for, the only information he shared was from articles that were publicly available.
The original verdict was appealed due to unfairness and no due process. There were no charges of prejudice in the case or potentially collapse in the trial as the media continued to push out. They originally tried to bring those charges last year but had to remove them as it's been proved in court twice that nothing I said in my live stream could have prejudiced the jury.
This is why Tommy was eventually released following an appeal. But British prosecutors decided to take him back to court because while he was questioning the members of the rape gang on their way to court, he ran the risk of causing them anxiety. And Tommy was found guilty, not by a jury, but by a panel of 2 judges. Oddly enough, British journalists who are cheering the new guilty verdict are simply too biased to spot the hypocrisy.
Let's have a look at the footage of me entering the Old Bailey for this trial. Let me show you this now.
Tommy Robinson, are you finally going to face justice for potentially collapsing this trial?
I didn't potentially collapse any trial. I'm actually not in charge. I'm not on trial for potentially collapsing a trial. My charge is causing anxiety to the men walking into court by putting cameras and asking them questions. Exactly what you've just done to me is what I face contempt of court for. Exactly this. Do you think this is causing me anxiety? Look at your actions. That's what I'm facing trial for. I didn't act this way. This is a facade. The whole public know that. That's why the public are here to support me. No, I didn't nearly collapse. That's a lie. You're lying. I didn't nearly collapse. The judge's words in that case, nothing I said could have caused prejudice to jury. Nothing. That's the judge's words. Read the transcript. Do your job as a journalist.
Were you in contempt of court?
No, I wasn't. That's why I was released from prison. The whole case was unlawful.
So, bogus charges, bogus media, bogus judges. The British legal system is officially garbage. The British government and the British media have been weaponized by the same sort of people who have been weaponizing social media platforms in their ongoing war on free speech. And yet, whenever I post something about Tommy, I get messages saying, "But David, Tommy's such a jerk. Look at this mean tweet by him from back when he was leading the English Defense League." Let me break this down for you. There are all kinds of very important discussions going on in the world. And there are people who don't want us to be able to have these important discussions. There are people who don't want any of us to say anything they disagree with. There are people who are working tirelessly to have you deplatformed on the internet if you say something they disagree with. There are people who want you thrown in jail if you say something they disagree with. Instead of standing up for our basic freedoms, entire governments and major social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube are being weaponized by people who have the emotional maturity of a 2-year-old flailing around on a Walmart floor because his mommy won't buy him a pack of Skittles. This push to control what you can say or think is a threat to just about everything you hold dear. So when someone like Tommy Robinson gets thrown in jail for talking about Islamic rape gangs, I'm not terribly interested in whether you happen to agree with something he said on Twitter 8 years ago. I am concerned with protecting him and people like him from an oppressive government. Why am I concerned? Well, let me tell you a story. 12 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal, and to the additional proposition that the government of Great Britain sucks. Now, I have to give credit where credit is due. Without Great Britain, there would be no United States of America. Many of the colonists who crossed the Atlantic in search of a new life were simply trying to put a massive ocean between them and that epic dumpster fire called the British government. Then the colonists declared their independence from Great Britain and fought a war and founded the United States of America. Why? Because the British government is just that bad. When Patrick Henry said, "Give me liberty or give me death," he was talking about that Chernobyl-like disaster we call the British government. He would literally rather die than be controlled by the British government. There's a myth that when the framers of the US Constitution and the Bill of Rights sat down to flesh out the details, they relied on their years of studying political philosophy to guide them. In reality, all they did was try to make the US government the exact opposite of the British government. James Madison would be like, "Oh man, I'm not sure what to do here. Hey, Hamilton, what did the British government do on this issue?" He would write it down and then put a big red X through it over and over again. You can see it. It's on display in the National Archives building. The framers set out to make our government the polar opposite of that extinction-level asteroid impact called the British government. In doing so, they created the most powerful, most prosperous nation the world has ever seen, just by reversing every single policy the British government ever came up with. Now, we tend to think that the British government has changed after 2.5 centuries of, first, us repeatedly kicking the crap out of them, and second, us repeatedly protecting them from becoming the least interesting province in the German and Russian empires. But has the British government really changed? We're talking about government officials who protect rape gangs from criticism, and then, when they're finally forced to act because of the public outcry, try to destroy the lives of the brave men and women who exposed the rape gangs. If anything, the British government is worse than it was under the tyrant King George. Kim Jong-un is watching British politicians right now, and he's taking notes because they are the masters of the craft of covert fascism. Is it any surprise that the new generation of British citizens wants to cross the Atlantic to the United States, where they can finally be free from the 21st century avatars of the tyrant King George? With these things in mind, on behalf of the people of the United States of America, I hereby agree that Tommy Robinson should be granted immediate emergency political asylum. Those of you on the side of liberty and justice, notify everyone you can notify. Tommy is supposed to be sentenced tomorrow. This can go a number of ways. The sentencing could be delayed for some reason. He could be sentenced to more time in prison and or a fine. He could be sentenced to time served, in which case he's already served his sentence when he was tortured in prison. Whatever happens, the British government isn't going to stop coming after Tommy Robinson until Tommy Robinson is dead. Political asylum is made for people like this. So let's all do our part in helping Tommy escape and in reminding British politicians, judges, and journalists that they suck. Sic semper tyrannis.
On behalf of my family, we love the United States. I have no future here. It's inevitable. I will be murdered, I will be killed, and I will be imprisoned on Thursday for journalism. We talk about North Korea, we talk about China, we talk about Russia. Our freedoms are gone. Our free speech is gone. It's gone. We live in a post-free speech era. And exactly the same, what they've inflicted in this nation, I know they want to do to yours. I know they want to take your freedoms. They want to change your constitution. I know there's people who would take away your rights tomorrow. The difference is they want to do it to you in America. They've done it to us. They've done it to us. Our free speech is gone and it's celebrated. It's celebrated by the people in power who rule over us, the globalists. It's celebrated. I've had to fight and fight and fight as a single individual. And right now I'm about to be imprisoned. And I'm saying, if you care about freedom like I know you do, I know America loves freedom. I know you'll fight for it and die for it. And so would we. But ours is gone. It's gone. The country's fallen.